Guys, welcome back to the Apex Files podcast presented by Racecomp Engineering. Today we got a very special guest joining us. He's a longtime OG enthusiast
and engineer, journalist. We have Mike Kojima on the show. Mike was worked at TRD Toyota. He's worked at Nissan. He was a big part of the Sport Compact Car magazine way back. And he's got his Moto IQ website and YouTube channel, which you should definitely follow, as well as follow the Apex Files and Racecomp Engineering on YouTube.
Yes, he's got all the great tech tips, suspension, knowledge. It's not easy reading material, but it is absolutely useful, especially for grassroots guys trying to get faster and understand suspension characteristics.
Yeah, and like how to level up your car, whether it's a street car or a track car or a wheel-to-wheel car, how to make it more fun to drive, how to get more grip, some engine technology stuff. It's really a good follow. And so Mike is also an engineer for some drift teams. We talked a little bit about Formula Drift and what makes that series so successful, and how it has such a huge following. It actually has more followers than on Instagram than Grid Life, Global Time Attack, IndyCar, FIA World Endurance Challenge, all of those almost combined, and almost as many followers as the World Rally Championship on Instagram. It's not the best measuring stick, but point is, it's very popular.
So welcome, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. And if you like what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Guys.
Where are you calling in from, Mike?
Cypress, California.
Cool. Yeah, we know you've been traveling a lot for Formula Drift and I guess Grid Life and other teams that you're on. How was the event in Atlanta this past weekend?
We didn't do too well. We're having a lot of misfire issues. We had a bunch of defective brand new wires, and so the car was misfiring. We could see on the data. We would change the wires, and then the misfire would move to different cylinders, and then we would change all of the wires. And we had probably like 3 defective sets of brand new wires on both cars. And I guess the wire manufacturer must have gotten a spool of bad wire or something. And we were like getting a multimeter and measuring the resistance of the wires. And a lot of the wires would be open circuit, or you would move them a little bit and they would go open circuit. And the team had to go to Summit Racing, send one of the crew guys and drive 3 hours to pick up a bunch of sets of brand new wires of a different brand. And we were able to install them. And we didn't get back in time for our prospect car. So our prospect car went out because it wasn't running correctly. And then our Pro 1 car, we got it right before competition. We didn't qualify very well because of the miss and irregular power, but we got it right before competition. And in our lead run, we had a clutch throwout bearing failure, so we had no clutch, and that caused us to get eliminated in 32. So it was a pretty frustrating week.
How did you get into developing drift cars? Like, was that something that you had an interest in for a while before you got into it, or was it kind of an opportunity that came at the right time?
You're not going to believe this, but I really always thought drifting was really stupid. And like my one of my things was I was an engineer for Nissan, and I had just left Nissan, and one of my friends was the technical director for Falcon Tires, their motorsports department, and they had built a Lexus for Daiyoshi, and it was a state of the art, like really, really well built, really expensive car. and it handled terribly. And he asked if like hired me as a consultant to help straighten it out. And so I said, "Oh, I guess." And um, I guess it kind of all went from there.
How much of a transition was that from, just the normal grip as doing the old school grip thing and then transitioning to the drifting of size of, like tuning the car, getting the right camera curves and stuff like that versus a grip driving?
Well, I think back then I was probably the first chassis specialist in drifting, and I kind of, I mean, I don't want to say I so much, but it kind of sparked a suspension revolution in drifting. Because if you guys were around back then, I mean, you kind of remember the thing like was Stabs cars and Oni Camber and Poke Pittman. Yeah, and like there were people had no idea, and cars, the drift cars were like done for an aesthetic, maybe. A lot of it was anyway, and nobody had any kind of clue. And there's like, I guess, this Japanese guru thing, and like, oh, some D1 guy says this, and like I'm a total outsider of the drift world. I go, I don't think that's right. They go, oh no, so and so says this, and I'm like, okay, well, doesn't mean it's right. And I guess there was a lot of controversy in me getting involved because people are going, "What's this road racer doing?" But at first it was basics. Just make sure the car had like wheel travel, like it wasn't on the bump stops. Make sure that it didn't have ridiculous bump steer or anything, and basically make sure the car is balanced. It was kind of like road racing setup, and to just the fundamentals. Make sure the shocks are adjusted correctly, things like that. And I still kind of had no clue, but like a lot of progress was being made. And then I started to experiment with a lot of tricks from oval track racing and dirt track racing. And that's when the innovation came in. And I don't know if you guys are around, but like that was about when Dye was in the S13.
Yeah,
And
the red and white one.
yeah, and we started doing things like messing with anti-squat geometry, messing with toe curves, messing with camber curves, and all within the limits of the FD rules. And then we had a little bit of success in 2010, and then FD, I don't know, like it maybe politically, really changed the suspension geometry rules to like maybe rein us in. I'm not sure. Like in 2010, like we were pretty close to winning the championship. It was us or Von Ginnen Jr. fighting back and forth, and it was kind of funny because we're like Falcons B team, and we basically had only like a 400 something, maybe 440 horsepower, like just crate motor, and we probably had 40% less horsepower than the ASD cars, but we were putting the hurting on them and pretty much putting the hurting on everybody else. And it causes a lot of attention on suspension. And after 2010, FD said all the geometry correction stuff we did was illegal, and we had to like basically go back to stock suspension geometry. And then we did some really weird things with shock valving and staggered spring stacks, kind of from the WRC world. And what we're trying to do is bring a lot of compliance in the first maybe inch of loaded travel. So if you look at the shock dyno, maybe it would be like really pointy, like at the transition between compression and rebound. And I mean, like one of the bad things about the S chassis, it has a tremendous amount of anti-squat, and we're trying to overcome that, like kind of kinematic bind the suspension has. And
Yeah.
I mean, that year we won the championship, so I guess it kind of worked.
Sounds like it. So
And,
you kind of set cars to have like some like the compliance so it can kind of bite in and start moving really, right?
yeah, like I had this theory that with the tires spinning, it's really sensitive to tire shock. So I was trying to minimize that as much as possible. Try to keep the contact patch from being unloaded and things. And uh, so we're using like WRC type spring stacks and that really weird shock valving and things like hydraulic load centering devices and stuff like that. That was the era where we had the the covers of the shocks, and we're very secretive. We take the shocks out and go to the trailer and close the door. A lot of it was to screw with people's heads, but we didn't want the people to see what we were doing, and sometimes we would have to change the spring stack around and things like that.
Mhm. That's
So
pretty cool.
it was a pain in the butt.
But it won you guys a championship, all right? So it's paid off in the end.
So how do you with drift, since you're not working with like lap times, you do get scored on different criteria, but like how do you measure like progress, and like what do you use as like, I know you collect a lot of data. You shared some suspension histograms on Instagram the other day. So you definitely collect a lot of data, but what are you looking at to make the car better, or like working with the driver to get them to be comfortable with the car?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I kind of really prefer the earlier era of drifting where you had your speed score, and speed was a big factor in judging. It was one of the three big factors. Uh, that was fun because the whole thing was, stay adrift but break off the other guy. Uh, I kind of like that. When they got rid of speed, as we started to not do so well. I think some of that was judging preference. Like they changed the judges, and one of the things I feel is that Dye kind of got a raw deal with the new era of judges because I think they felt that his style of driving is boring, and I would tell them that a lot of fans like that smooth, fluid driving style. Like that's good driving. It's not boring, but they kind of like like when Chelsea Denofa has a good day and he looks like he's going to crash at any second, but he pulls it off and his line's good and everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really like that too, but I felt like they rewarded that and kind of penalized the way Dye drove. And the new judging in Formula D is kind of different, and now they would tend to reward his driving, but like he doesn't want to do drifting anymore, and he's doing really well on road racing. So,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
No, what were we talking about again before?
Well, I was asking about like, yeah, we know you collect a lot of data, and then you have like you shared some like suspension histograms the other day. But like, what are you looking for to like measure that the car is better or worse with the data that you collect?
We came up with this algorithm, and we call it I don't know what we call it. We call it like maybe used horsepower, and it's like an equation that kind of looks at wheel slip percentage, GPS speed, lateral longitudinal G forces, and it also takes the gear ratio and all that into consideration, and the slip ratio between actual speed and wheel speed. And it's kind of like a coefficient that gives us what we think is the amount of horsepower being put to the pavement. And so we keep an eye on that factor and we adjust around that. We also use the histograms a lot, and it's kind of interesting. Like you might have seen what I posted on social media, like the difference between the car hooked up for competition versus qualifying. I didn't say it was qualifying versus competition, but the first picture was the car set up to be easy to drive and um, forgiving, and like for a good qualifying run. And then the second one was hooked up for like maybe the level, like once we get to 16, how we would hook the car up, or kind of depends who we're up against in 32 also. It's a lot grippier. There's a lot more movement. The car is generating a lot of forces, but then it's harder to drive though. It's twitchier and it can straighten up. Requires a lot more throttle commitment. Yeah.
So you mentioned some tricks and methods from like oval track racing and WRC. Are you interested in working on like a rally team or jumping in there?
Well, I want to start helping my friend that does grassroots rallycross to get some experience, because I don't want to go to a pro team and go, I know nothing about rally, but I learned real quick. Hire me for a lot of money. That would not do a pro team service. And I mean, yeah, I do learn really fast, but pro team demands excellence right out of the box. So I want to help one of my grassroots rallycross friends and get a really good feel for what's necessary. And I would like to do that. I would like to do circle track too.
Yeah. What kind of car is the rallycross car?
It's a GDWRX.
Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, that'd be neat.
And so, yeah, I really want to learn, but I want to convince them to buy some three-way like Rigers or something, so get the most out of what I can do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so you generally work with KW, which is now part of the Riger is part of that KW group now.
Right.
How did you start that relationship with them, or come to find them as like a good go-to?
So sorry, my voice is starting to go out. My allergies are killing me.
Yeah, it's crazy allergy season here too.
I think the worst ever with all the rain we've been having. So it's kind of interesting. Like the very first year KW came to SEMA in the United States, I was walking by their booth, and I was an engineer at Nissan at the time, working on the Nismo program. And so I was looking for a shock supplier, and I was going, wow, look at this stuff. And I met Klaus Wolfart. He's the president of the company, and we got along really well. And then I went out drinking with him, and that was kind of like the start of a long relationship that I've had with KW. And what I like about them is they're a very technical, engineering-driven company, and they have OEM levels of engineering and validation, and they're ISO, TS, QS certified. Their production and their quality and everything is at the OEM level, and they're a OEM supplier to like Mercedes, BMW, and Porsche, like some of their special cars. So it's very engineering intensive, and after that, I was asked to help Dye's effort even before my involvement in Falcon, but because they were saying nobody in drifting understands like how to use a three-way shock. But things didn't line up until I actually got officially asked by Falcon. And I guess so. My relationship goes back to maybe 2006 or something at that SEMA show.
I might have been there. I'm trying to remember. I went to SEMA right around 2006 or so, 2007. I can't remember.
And yeah, but it's been great working with them. I think they're a great company. They're always on the forefront of technology. I mean, there's new things like their EXR valves. Uh,
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
there's other things like on the horizon that are currently in their very high end pro stuff, like solid piston technology. That's probably going to trickle down to the grassroots motorsports level soon. So, sorry, cool stuff is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would say we've been working with KW for a while now. We love them. They're a great technical partner. You say you can't beat the quality of the coilers, and plus, we have a lot of European customers too. So when they ask, it's got to be TUV approved, no problem.
And then so like with some of the other engineers we've talked to or people we've had on the show, they kind of have like a formula for how they modify their cars. Do you kind of have, like, even for a street car, a fun street car, do you kind of have like a path that you usually go down for some of your street cars?
Uh, you mean like from a suspension standpoint?
Or just like modifying, like I would say, like I guess like us techie guys, we go about modifying our cars differently. I think it's safe to say like power would be the last thing on our list, right? Like I know like we talked to Mitch from Melee Designs, and like he's got a formula of like driver mod, brakes, wheels, suspension. That are like the basics to start off with. Do you have any that are similar or
You mean like for my personal cars or stuff I do?
yeah, personal or just any if a customer comes in that wants to hire you and say, hey, I want to do something, just basics to still learn the characteristics of the car, not having to drive up to it.
I know for if me and my personal cars, I kind of do. I think my style is like OEM plus. So my cars tend to look almost stock, but they have the biggest possible tires you can stuff in the stock wheel well. I work on the fitment a lot to get that down, and so my cars look pretty stock, but like the suspension is almost like a detuned GT3 car or something. So I have a lot of suspension, a lot of brakes. And then my engines, when I build them, I mean, they might be fully built, but they're tuned to have like the widest possible power band. Like when I was a kid in my 20s, I used to try to build this king of the street kind of thing. So uh, you're driving around in something that doesn't run all that great with pump fuel and has a really narrow power band and explosive power delivery. And as I got older, I started thinking, well, that's not so fun to drive like on the street. And so I started trying to hit maximum power band with good torque, minimum turbo lag, still impressive power. I mean, like my daughter's STI is kind of like my latest creation. So I'm targeting kind of like a stock power band, but with like maybe 520, 530 horsepower. Uh, right now it's at about 500, but it's running out of compressors. So at about 6,600 RPM, the power really drops because it's out of compressor flow. So I got a slightly bigger turbo and slightly bigger injectors, and I'm going to put that in and hopefully make it so the car will like. I wanted the power just to keep pulling to about, I don't know, 70, 77 or something,
Be
but
amazing.
not gain any lag.
Yeah.
And so that car has like your Racecomp KW three-way club sports. So
Sweet.
Oh, nice.
that would be something cool. And it has your camera plates and stuff like that on it. So it has some Racecomp stuff.
Awesome.
I guess my GTR, when I'm done with it, like it's going to have about 1,100 horsepower, but the power band it's going to have less lag than stock, so it'll pull from lower RPM, and then it'll pull to probably, hopefully, around 8. So I'm going to have like a huge power band and a lot of suspension work, a lot of brakes, but basically that's huge carbon ceramics. But basically it looks stock.
That's amazing.
And then I have an Evo. That looks pretty much stock, but that makes about 500 wheel horsepower, and it literally pulls from 3,000 strong to 8,000. It's really, really fun. It doesn't even feel like it has a turbo. So that's my personal street car or play around car. It's kind of like if my goal is if the factory was coming out with like a super crazy model, like, you know, a GT3 RS, like something the factory would do.
Yeah, that's cool. We were both talking before, like we're getting a little tired of loud cars, and I think we're getting a little bit old, but like we're getting tired of louder cars, and we're kind of switching to like we kind of want like an OEM plus type of car too. So we're like rethinking some of our like mod ideas. So we both live in Baltimore City, where the roads are terrible, and you know, just driving's a little scary in general. So we want something that's like a little bit more low key.
Definitely got to have good suspension because of potholes. But one thing I want to ask you, like, what are some most common mods you see people make when modifying their cars?
Like some of the mods that they probably shouldn't do.
Number one on my list is crackle tunes. Man, like I want to like choke out anybody. And like they think it's cool, and then so they want to you know, do the crackle as loud as they can all the time, and they just rev and just make noise and call attention to themselves. And to me, that's like the epitome of douchebaggery. And
and you're just hurting your motor at the end of the day. It's not.
I want those people to hurt their motors.
They'll be doing crackle tune and just blow it up on the side of the street next.
A lesson learned.
Spit the turbine wheel, you know, out the tailpipe. Man, that crap annoys me so much. And it's like, you think you're so cool, and anybody that knows anything about cars is just rolling their eyes. You know, my Evo, my STI both have anti-lag strategies, but like I tune it so it'll never come on in normal driving. And these idiots try to make it so it'll come on in anything past idle, and it's like
so after Burble Tunes, what will be the next?
So that's the number one lame thing that I think needs to die. I guess the other one was like that hella flush poke oni camber thing, but I think that's kind of taking care of itself. Like it's in our part of the country, it's not that popular anymore. Now the thing is race stance, and I go, oh, you mean doing your car right?
Yeah, I see it every once in a while, but I've never seen it on a car that looks like it hasn't been hit with a baseball bat several times with the bumper. It never looks good because the rest of the car is like barely hanging on. So yeah, it's a different style. But
or like even so like in terms like more technical stuff, like in people who get, like we see a lot people who get like for the BRZ or you know, double wishbone rear, you have the low control arms or aftermarket ones that are adjustable, you know, not only in camber but allows different motion ratios as well. And most people, you know, they don't know or realize what those 3 extra holes are for the left and right, you know. And they would just randomly choose one to fit their ride height or whatever.
Or they like try to fit, they'll modify the upper arm to fit wheels in a certain way, and end up with some weird geometry.
And then I wonder why their car handles odd, or can't get any damper setting or spring rate's not going to fix it. But have you seen anything like that in your history of
just like really funky geometry? Really, that to me seems one of the hardest things to explain.
Time.
It's really hard to explain that type of thing to people. I think spring rates people kind of get, and
it's sort of like the more sophisticated the suspension, the more chances you have to mess it up. And I don't know if you've been paying attention to our YouTube channel lately, but I've been doing this series on how to adjust your shocks.
Yes, yep.
I mean, people like mess up their cars so much, and the more knobs they have, the more they mess it up. And working for KW, there's been so many people, even like YouTubers and stuff that I've helped out, because they say, "Oh, I got KWs and they're awful. I'm getting Olins." And what they've done is just got into a thing where they've completely jacked their car all up. And then I work with them and they go, "Oh, wow, these are awesome." And like the more knobs, the more they mess it up.
Yeah. So what would you, or I know most, thankfully KW, they have suggested settings, the baseline settings to start off with. Well, for people people who have coilovers brands that don't have suggested settings, what would your recommendation be as a good starting point? Start, from full soft, work your way up compression and then rebound.
You had a couple of good, really good rules of thumb, or in the YouTube video you just mentioned. Right. I was watching that. You had a couple good. You should probably mention here
pointers of where to start off with.
Well, I'd like to put my YouTube channel. So
absolutely, of course,
go watch my videos, my basic how to adjust your shocks. Then I did one on how to do compression and rebound adjustable shocks, and in a couple of weeks I'm going to come out with how to adjust 3, 4, and 5-way shocks, and that's coming in a couple of weeks. But generally, if you have a shock that doesn't have a good baseline, like KW provides a really decent baseline, make everything full soft and then dial up the compression first. And when it harshes out, back off, and then do the rebound until it harshes out and then back off. And generally what you want to try to do is run the most compression and the least amount of rebound that gives you a nice compliant ride that's controlled.
Mm-hmm. The notion of stiff is fast, right? I think a lot of people have that not ingrained, but grew up or were told that having a stiff car is automatically going to be a faster lap time or make you faster. But obviously that's we know that's not the case. A car needs compliance, it needs suspension travel. And I think you mentioned drifting is similar. Drifting, you still need a soft suspension.
Or you still need compliance.
The most mechanical grip is found with the softest setup that gives you acceptable platform control and keeps you off the bump stops.
I was really glad in your video, and you just said it too, that the most compression and the least amount of rebound. A lot of the time we see, and I posted an article on the Apex Files about this, just showing how stiff on a certain coilover, how stiff full stiff really is for rebound, and it was just outrageously stiff. That no one should ever run that much rebound on any car. But we know that people do all the time, and they think that's what it's supposed to feel like. And so here, hearing you say most compression, least amount of rebound is a really good way to put it. Give that platform control.
I think most people would generally try to do the opposite, right? Or go super high in the rebound.
Especially back in the day, we saw a lot of shocks really had tons of rebound and not very much compression at all. And that started changing, and I think that started changing more to be less rebound biased because of partially KW, but some of the European shock manufacturers in general kind of did things a little bit differently, and people started realizing what good could feel like.
Yeah. I mean, if you get it right, I mean, for instance, I just got back from testing our Pikes Peak car, the S2000, and our Pikes Peak, not our time attack configuration, but the Pikes Peak configuration has like some like 22 kg springs. And then a light car like an S2K, you would think that would be insanely stiff, right? But the car is actually very soft and compliant. When you have good quality dampers and you adjust them right. Like the car, you can see the wheels are like way more active over the bumps and stuff than your typical tuned street car. And that's with like what 3 times the spring rate that most guys.
Yeah.
What is an S2000? Is that like 3 hertz or something for natural frequency? I'm getting
3 hertz
nerdy.
is like super high. That might like
It is high, but 22 is that what I was with the double wishbone. I don't have much S2000 experience, but
I
like
think that car is kind of like maybe about 2 and Pikes Peak trim, maybe about 2.4 hertz.
okay.
Um, and I mean, that's a whole nother thing. Like some of my secret tricks, like I look at frequency balancing the front to rear and to get rid of any harmonic bob that imparts extra energy into the suspension. That's a big secret, especially with downforce cars where you're running really, really, really high spring rates. Um, like I don't know if you guys like looked at any of the video from Pikes Peak, but the top section of the course is super, super rough. I mean, it's almost like a dirt road. And if you look at video of our the Model 3 Tesla we ran last year, for instance, versus like some of those other Teslas or any of the other cars, you notice that even though we're running insane spring rates, I mean, you wouldn't believe like almost 40 kg. Like how compliant that car is. And you look at our splitter height over those extreme bumps, and then you look at the other cars, they're bouncing all over the road. And like, I think Dye was like 30 or 40 seconds behind going into that last section. And then he caught up and put another 10 seconds on the next electric car just because our car was like so compliant up there and could maintain aero platform stability and stuff like that.
Really curious to know like what's next for you, and like talk about Moto IQ a little bit too. I mean, that's we grew up reading Sport Compact Car, and it seems like Moto IQ is it, but in the future. And you had your YouTube channel. What else are you working on these days?
Well, thing about Moto IQ is that people don't like to read anymore.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep that going because there's a certain percentage of the people that read, to me, tend to be smarter and they're more, it's a big market still, but we're going to focus more on YouTube. And I want to get our YouTube to the point where it's making enough money to where I can add people so we could have more production value and we can make more videos. Like right now, we can only come out with one every 2 weeks. And the algorithm will only let us grow so much with that rate. But it's so much more work doing videos than doing a website.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I would like to work on more entertaining production value and bring in more characters besides my boring ass talking about stuff. But we have to kind of grow it organically, and unless we get a financial backer. So if anyone out there wants to back a YouTube channel that we could probably build into become like the smart Hoonigans or the smart donut media.
I mean, that sounds amazing, right? Because it's like we again, like we love the techie stuff, but it's not for everybody. Right?
Yeah, and even if like the audience is there, the algorithm is so annoying.
Yeah, it's so skewed that your videos won't show up, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right? That's
just working the algorithm is just a whole other thing, but it's still fun. We're still enjoying it on what we do. But
I would like to get the production budget so we can make tech fun. We're growing really fast, though. I mean, we're at about, I don't know, over 700,000 views per month.
And that's awesome.
And we, I think, are over 100,000 subscribers, and we're adding 6,000 or 7,000 every month. And it's going up logarithmically. So, and I think we have a pretty dedicated fan base, because it's kind of funny. Like when I walk around, if it's a time attack or a drift event, I mean, a lot of people want their pictures taken with me and autographs and all this stuff, like I'm actually somebody, and it's kind of a trip. But
seeing you throughout the years on the internet, and talking to you now, it is awesome, and it's just like a dream come true still. You to us, you are a star.
You're the like the this is a compliment, like the true OG nerd for the import world.
Right.
I guess like I don't know, it'd be my dream to do like engineer like GT cars and stuff like that. And I mean, I know I could totally do it, but like lower level of pro road racing, yeah, I've done, but I'd like to get in the high level.
Yeah,
I had some opportunities, but I had to turn them down because I would have to give up Moto IQ, and I didn't want to. So I mean, I had some offers from like some factory teams for IMSA and stuff, but I didn't have the bandwidth.
Yeah, it's a big commitment, and
a lot of traveling too. And well, I guess that's if you stay with IMSA. You could do WC teams over there and just be all over the place every weekend.
Yeah. It's cool to see the growth though of like Formula Drift too. It's huge. I mean, I had no idea that it was quite as big as it is. It's bigger than Time Attack, which is I think a surprise to a lot of people.
Yeah, like we have Summer Point Motorsports Park. That's our home track, and they've always had a lot of drifting events, so a lot of track days as well. But I think the drifting has gone bigger, and there's more drifting than actual track days there now. But we also live by MA Motorsports, which is cool, and driving by them every once in a while to see the cars out there that they're prepping, and it's the amount of drift cars that they are prepping on the grassroots to pro level is crazy.
I think it's the only like car type motorsport that's a growth market right now. Everybody else is contracting, and FD is like generates a much bigger audience. I mean, I think even than IMSA. Like IMSA is really contracting, and I mean, you go to an IMSA race nowadays, it's all gentleman drivers, and you don't see sponsorship logos on cars very much, and it's starting to suck, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that the drifting is a much more affordable way to get into motorsports, I think, right? Especially, you don't need the grippiest tire that you can find. But
yeah, and it's like, I don't know, even like, so we had a driver that's in the new GR Cup class, the GR Cup series, which is really cool, and I think a lot of people are excited about it. And even like the entry price is not that bad, but it still is more than what most people thought. It kind of seemed like a cool thing that any old person could do.
More like a spec me out type deal, but
it's
obviously
it's
that
still
wasn't
like a
the case.
level up from there. So you still have a lot of like good competition, and honestly, the feedback and viewership for it is pretty good for a spec series, but it's still kind of one level up from what I think most people were hoping for.
Well, I think like the sanctioning bodies like IMSA and IndyCar, they have to realize that I don't think the fans like Spec Racer Deluxe. And like, and that's what open wheel has turned into in this country is Spec Racer Deluxe. And I think fans, especially for like road racing and things, are more sophisticated than like maybe NASCAR fans. And I mean, for myself, I that's why I quit paying attention to IndyCar because I don't want to watch Spec Racer Deluxe. And then even IMSA's turning into Spec Racer Deluxe. Like I mean, you guys are old enough to know about the heyday of GTP, when they used to have GTO, GTU, GTP, and the diversity of cars and how interesting
The
it was.
innovation.
And they had the awards thing, so the cars stayed pretty competitive with each other, even with very diverse designs and stuff. That was great. And then the Indy cars, when you had all kinds of different constructors and all different motors. And you guys aren't old enough, but when I was a kid, they had like almost every entry was built by some garagista kind of guy. Like,
That's awesome.
Unit would build some car. Quinn Epperly would build some car. The Curtis guys would build some car. AJ Foyt had his Coyotes.
Yeah.
Gurney had his Eagles. They're all like different, diverse. And every once in a while, like a garage tuner could like show the more sponsored, like the Penske guys, what's up. And then that stuff was like what was interesting. Nowadays, you all have the same chassis. Even like in prototypes, you have like two different chassis and
right. It's all built by one manufacturer or two manufacturers, right? And you kind of design it a little bit here and there to the manufacturers. Yeah.
I think even DTM and JGTC is going to that universal chassis kind of thing. And I mean, to me, like they say that keeps costs down, but then I don't know. I don't think it really does that much. Just like NASCAR, that's Spec Racer Deluxe, but the teams spend millions and millions for the smallest advantage. And yeah, I just think that's killing the sport.
Do you think that's why it's such a Formula Drift has gotten so big? Because I mean, all the cars are so different. There's like, there's no rules on motors and I guess horsepower limits or anything like that. There's so many different chassis. You see four-door like BMWs
and engine swaps and stuff too. It's like the cars are unique. You still have like I think with like a some series you get the driver personality thing, which kind of helps viewership. But in Formula Drift, you definitely get that, and you also get innovation and different cars to root for. So
I think what makes Formula Drift getting more and more popular is that the rule set that they've developed keeps the cars identifiable to the fans. Like the smart thing would be to go to tube chassis that are modular that we could fix really easy. But there are unibody rules, the amount of stock body panels that we have to keep in the chassis, the amount that we are limited by what we could do to the suspension. That makes it all relatable. And I think if like a kid could say, man, if I really focus, I could build that car. It's selling the dream. And I think that helps our industry. I think it develops fans that are really like into it, both the driving side and the that I could probably build that kind of thing too. I mean, most people you probably can't build it, but like I would say, like a pro car is like maybe $250,000 investment. I mean, there's some guys like Jeff Jones that could kick ass with way less money, but like the top cars, they're pretty expensive. But I mean, the fact that Jeff Jones And guys like Kyle Mohan and Jeff, they can go out there and kick some ass. Rome, he kicks butt like with what he can build like in his little shop, and uh, Rome brings the hurt, right? And Jeff brings the hurt too. And the
Yeah.
fact that the formula is open enough to where privateers can be right in there with the really well-funded teams, that's really neat. And that's another thing to show that really restrictive rules actually make it racing more expensive. Like a formula drift, everything is open. But what's cool about drifting is you don't have to make the most power. It's like as long as you make enough, you're competitive. Um, and so I think drifting, the rules that Formula D has done has actually been really smart and really helped the sport. I think Pro Spec is really smart and really helps the sport. Um, and you know you got to sell the dream, and like the grassroots guys uh, have to go. Well, I'm doing drift days now, but I can do pro am, and then I could do pro spec, and then maybe I can get my crack at it.
Mhm.
And
There-
with a car I built myself.
yeah.
And
There's
I
like a
don't think
clear path forward.
any motorsport. I mean, like if you want to race IMSA, you got to buy a cup car or something. That's the cheapest way. And what's that? Like
Mhm.
a almost $500,000 investment. These young kids could do like some amazing things. Like I'm really behind in like a lot of software, and I think
Yeah.
like a lot of the AI stuff is really going to change the design of things in the future. And new technology like additive manufacturing, that is going to you're going to see some radical differences in the way products are designed and manufactured, and even the look and the design of stuff is going to really change in the next few years, maybe even like 5 years. Like you might not even recognize some of the common parts anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right with like with AI, like optimization for some like structural parts and stuff like that. It's really an interesting um, field that's changing quick. Will be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think even seeing it from just like the 3D scanning nowadays to the the in the 3D printing, like the exponential growth of both of those in the automotive industry is just crazy, and it's not nonstop.
And how like attainable it is too.
Well, like the AI stuff creates geometries that can't be manufactured with traditional methods. But with all these additive manufacturing methods and technologies that are coming really quick, I mean, you're going to see really weird organic looking things. Things are going to look more like they do in nature than things that man made in the future. And it's kind of neat, and it's probably really scary too, because who knows where AI is going to lead us, right? I mean, Skynet is coming, and I think mankind has to be really careful, or else, sooner than we think, it might decide that it doesn't need us. That's a really scary thing right on the horizon, and it might be on us faster than we think.
Things have changed a lot, and the question a lot of people's minds is like, is it getting? It's obviously getting faster. Like cars are faster and handle better. There's so much more grip. But a lot of times people find the older cars just more fun and engaging. Is that where do you stand on that?
Shoot, the new cars, you can't even figure them out anymore. Excuse me. I mean, there's so many things that are frustrating, like CAN bus issues, especially when you're trying to modify a late model car into a race car. But like, let's say maybe you don't want to be committed to like going to a Motec or something. I mean, but nowadays with these new cars, it's either all or nothing. It's like really hard to build a street track car and slowly grow it into a race car. Like a typical guy might get some, like an M3 or something, let's say, and then he'll start doing track days, and then you might start doing time attack, and you might want to step it up and go to street class, or he might actually want to do some wheel to wheel. And when you get to about that point, the electronics are so integrated. It's really hard to. At that point, it's either all or nothing, and it's really hard for the hobbyists. I mean, like we've tried to do things, and like we tried to do a Focus ST race car, for instance, and it all of a sudden quit running, and the owner had taken out the radio and gutted the car and made it into a race car, and we're trying to figure out why it wouldn't run, and then we plugged the anti-theft harness, the antenna for the system in, the car started running again. And then we were tuning it on the dyno. It was running fine, and all of a sudden we said, "Let's do one more pull," and the ECU went crazy and just threw a bunch of advance, and the engine exploded. And nobody, from the tuner software company to the Ford factory, could understand why it did that. And at that point, it's like, well, I guess we got to rip it out and put a Motec in and put a mil-spec harness, and that's like a $15,000 investment for someone that is a grassroots guy. And time and time again, it's wrestling with the CAN bus, and another time we're doing a late model M2, and we had changed all the suspension and put sticky tires on, and the car was going slower than stock because the vehicle dynamics control was going crazy and like more or less taking over the car.
Yeah, it's like you shouldn't be able to have this much grip, so it freaks out.
Right. And another time, a late model Supra, the car had gotten wrapped, and then the front cameras got covered by the wrap, and the car was freaking out. And like Daiyoshi was driving, he goes, "This car seems like it's taking over and trying to drive on its own." And he was getting frustrated. He just pushed the throttle to the floor in the corners, and the car would just put along. And we ended up being slower than stock. And then we had some Toyota engineers with us, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And then we said, "Hey, maybe the wrap is over the camera." We peeled it off, and the car went back to kind of normal. So it's just like this frustration that kind of makes it, having a 90s car, a lot more fun because it's a lot more straightforward to modify and tune and set up. And then the cars are lighter, much lighter, and they have like a kind of funner feel to them, lighter, more nimble. I mean, even though the numbers might not be as good, they feel more like race cars.
Yeah. In your opinion, what do you think was the golden age of sports compact cars? 80s, 90s, early 2000s?
I like what like what I consider the golden age of Japanese the sweet cars, like in the very late 80s, early 90s. Like the era that you got the S13, the R32, the Z32, the Mark IV Supra. I mean, the Supra, the FDRX7. I think that was, to me, the pinnacle of good times, I guess, and funnest cars. And I mean, that's when it was really enjoyable and not too frustrating. And those cars of the era, I mean, I still prefer them.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think we want to thank you for your time. Real quick before I head out, though, we want to ask, if our industry is so dependent on aftermarket, so dependent on these OE manufacturers, but like Toyota, Nissan, people that you've worked with before, they're trying to make that push in the sports car or bring the sports car market back. Is there any specific car you'd like to see that to make a revival, like a MR2 or S16, or finally a new S chassis or something?
Yeah, like if Nissan could bring a S chassis back, it'd be awesome. But Nissan is I don't know, pretty messed up company, like management wise, and
Right. Yeah.
I doubt they would ever do that. Like I like rear wheel drive little sports cars. I want to see manufacturers make those, and not like something like a Miata, but S2K, S chassis, that sort of thing. And I'd like the hot hatch to come back. Like 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 cool little front wheel drive, kind of simplistic EK Civic or
Absolutely, like a proper hatch, because these they call the Integra a hatchback, but I mean, come on, right?
It's big.
Yeah,
it's a big car.
And even like the Type R, that car is a big car. I mean, it's like the size of what an Accord used to be, right?
Yeah.
Like small, fun to drive. God, what else would I like to see? Like sports sedans that aren't so crazy.
My friend had a E36 BMW 318, so it had like 138 horsepower, but it was a stick shift, four-wheel disc brakes, reasonably good suspension, and it was so much more fun than most new cars. And there's no like simple rear-wheel drive sedan now. It's all just like 4,000-pound cruisers.
Well, when you look at the M3, M4, those are like super badass cars, but you ever look under the hood, it's like, oh man, when you gotta change your about 100,000 miles where your hoses start to get brittle and everything, it's like time to get a new car. Or
yeah. I'll keep my 90 shit box. I love it. It's fine.
so nowadays the joke is everybody loves BMWs until it's time to do BMW stuff.
Yeah,
So it's like
lease them.
I got to change my heater hose. Oh, I had to pull the motor and change like those millions of hoses that are buried, and it doesn't even look like an engine anymore. It looks like a bored cube or something.
So I think we're that was great. Thanks for joining us. Been looking forward to this conversation for a while, and I know you've been bouncing around the country, working with teams.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you and to finally meet you. Obviously people go watch, subscribe to Moto IQ.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to plug in?
Well, go to motoiq.com if you want to. If you're not a dumb person, you still know how to read. And then go to our Moto IQ YouTube channel if you think I'm not too boring. And then I try to talk about a whole bunch of different subjects and try to work on it so I'm not the only person on the channel. So, but help me out, subscribe. I make money doing this. The more money I make, the better I can make the channel. So
there we go.
Well, we're looking forward to we watched the how to set up a two-way coilover.
Yeah, we're looking forward to 3-4, and you said and 5-way too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right when we're done here, I have some 3-ways to put on my car. So if you can just hurry up with that video, that'd be great.
But thanks again, Mike. We really appreciate your time.
Cool.
Okay, it was a lot of fun, and sorry my voice is all jacked up.
No worries.
No worries.
Yeah, cool. Take care. Thank you.
Okay, talk to you guys later. See ya.
Hey guys, it's Jordan Pepper here. Just want to let you know, for all your latest up-to-date tech news, follow Apex Files.